Well, hello. Let's talk about a little bit about Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador. Like, is El Salvador getting it right and the rest of the world getting it wrong? After about a year, I really would like to think about it. It's all about gas money now, so we have to take kind of measure what's going on in the world because it looks like we're going through a little bit of a cryptopocalypse. It's not the
Hello.
first time
Let's
that
talk a
this
little bit
has
about
happened,
Bitcoin
and I
and,
am pretty sure
and
that it
whether or
will
not.
not be the last. Now, exploring El Salvador's influence to make Bitcoin its legal tender involves asking a few questions. So, if we ask some basic questions like, what's special about El Salvador? Because they're out on a limb here. Is El Salvador an internet based society? Are they a high technology leader? Like how do they use their technology? Are these folks sitting at PCs, or is it folks sitting running around on tablets and cell phones? Like, is Salvador you using Bitcoin as legal tender, is that in the best interest of the people? And then you can do the pros and cons of that to figure out, why El Salvador would turn to a cryptocurrency as a legal tender. So when you start off with El Salvador, like I gotta say, the demographics for El Salvador really look great. Much better than you find in most of the G7 countries. Much better than you find in China. The country's absolutely beautiful. Like, folks would, be lucky to retire there. Provided that you can find a way to speak the language and do everything else. But El Salvador is not truly an internet-based society. Like, the beauty of the country, that's very important to consider. The but that doesn't do a lot for your financial networks. So, internet adoption in El Salvador, even though it's rapidly expanding, you're still talking about a country that's at less than 60% market penetration for the internet. Period. Internet adoption in El Salvador is it's way behind most developed countries, and most of the population has no internet, and they're running mobile only. Now, the economy is resource based rather than internet and technology based. So, if you're taking a look at El Salvador and you say that there were X million people and the number of internet users was 420,000, and like that's like, if it increased by 420,000, that's a 15% increase from 2020 to 2021, but that still leaves them at a fairly low level. So somewhere between 50 and 60% for internet penetration, which is kind of odd if you're going to be using a cryptocurrency. So, if the people of El Salvador, if they're not tech savvy, or tied to internet ecosystems, they have not yet been exposed to a lot of the vicious internet scams that we run into. And this is like leading lambs to slaughter, as the citizens are set up to be hoodwinked left and right until many of them are, just plain cleaned out. So, El Salvador as a country, it has about $236 million in high technology exports. That is $33 per capita. Now, to put that in perspective, Japan's high technology exports are about $816 million per capita. So $33, 33 versus 816 million. El Salvador is not even on the map when it comes to production of high technology goods and services. So they're lagging behind most of the Western world. The issues with their technology, they're structural and they're persistent. And if technology development is a goal of the administration, which, and I applaud them for that, but like they have a real long way to go before they become a high tech market leader. So, we're taking a look again at this principle, which is huge. Again, $236 million per capita. Like, you see that chart down there, it's showing you, what their high technology exports are, and it's not something that's really gonna impress you. Like, to get on the map, they're gonna really need to step it up, and so maybe we say, okay, well, maybe they're gonna bypass a lot of that stuff and go to mobile technology adoption. Well, as the arrow bounced in there to show you, like, they are very heavily dependent on a 2G infrastructure for their internet. Now, when you're talking about a country that has, Panama, Nicaragua, and Belize as its compatriots, and if that's the cohort that you're sitting in, you are way behind the curve in mobile adoption. So, yeah, how do you use a cryptocurrency when you don't have internet and you have limited mobile penetration, and then that mobile penetration that you do have is running at 2G, like 50% of the country is still on 2G. Essentially this indicates that most of the country is really going to have its mobile technology infrastructure upgraded, and that will require significant foreign investment. Now, if you do a Google search for El Salvador and you say you go El Salvador government website, type it in just as it is, something hits you right away. Like, this is a country that has not even mastered SEO. Like they don't even have mastery of that very basic part of the internet landscape. Like, they can't get themselves the #1 ranking for their own government website. Like, any country that wants to make crypto as legal tender really needs to have its networks locked down. They need to be tight, and El Salvador is probably exposing itself and its citizens once again to a massive amount of risk. Like, if you think about the cybersecurity measures that are going to be required if you're going to have a population, like, using crypto wallets and connecting to exchanges and having their passwords move around the internet, you're talking about some really significant stuff. So if El Salvador can't get the SEO algorithms right, what are the odds that they're going to get security right? It's just not an easy thing to do. So, as an example, hackers can find new and novel ways to move a lot of digital assets from one point to another. You're dealing with an asset where, because it's not physical, no one has to break down your door to take the asset from you. All they need to do is have a target, and given time, they will find the weakness. So digital crime, it's on the rise. The number of attacks per day continues to increase. Do we really know how immune crypto systems are to future attack? Like, we have an understanding of the present, but we don't exactly know, what the future holds. So, like, here's an article that was in Forbes. Hackers, made $100 million, and they can make $1 billion off just hacking by 2025. And I guarantee you that number probably understates, how significant an issue it is. So here we are, we're in crypto. Mostly, I've been just talking about the technological side of it. But beyond that, there's the financial. Is El Salvador a financial leader? Do other countries look to El Salvador and say, hey, we want to be like you? And I gotta say, El Salvador, they're mostly a financial backwater. Like their GDP numbers are not good. Like, if you look over there on the slide, like, you see that Germany is GDP per capita is at $50,788. El Salvador is at $4,244. Like, Germany's only number 22 on the list. El Salvador is, like, they're at the lower end of the middle of the pack, but you're talking about just a gigantic difference. Like, Germany is whether you like Deutsche Bank or not, like, people have a lot of criticisms of them, and those criticisms are well earned. Germany has a footprint that is very large in the financial sectors. Like, when you ever talk about the euro, a lot of times you're really talking about Germany. That's probably half the problem that we have out there in the Ukraine is that like, Germany can't afford to shut its economy down, but they for some reason think that they can't afford to shut Russia's money off and not have anything come back on them. But that's a story for another time. El Salvador, they are a very small country on a per capita basis. Not like there's not a lot of money in there overall, and that's what the deal is. The issue is that there's not a lot of money, per individual. Like, you're not going down to El Salvador because you want to set up a big bank and think that you're going to run it out of there. So what are the benefits of Bitcoin as a legal tender? And there are some. Like, it's virtually immune to supply inflation. After the algorithm completes its production phase, it's done. You can break it down into satoshis, and that does actually allow for a certain type of inflation to occur because it increases the liquidity of the coins. But it does present something that's nice as a store of value. Transaction speeds might not be as fast, but they are secure. Transactions that are conducted in Bitcoin, they can be a bit more private, and that's something a lot of people like. It's difficult to hack the blockchain with the current generation of technology. It has the potential to preserve capital, very importantly, outside of the local currency. El Salvador, as a country, does not have its own sovereign reserve currency. They use the U.S. dollar. So if like there are actually some pros for El Salvador because they don't have a central bank and they can't inflate their own currency. They have very little control of what's going on in their own in their own neighborhood. It's probably something that can be presented with some general appeal. So if you eliminate the need for having reserve currency, it's fantastic, right? So what are the problems with Bitcoin as legal tender? Now, the international central banks don't like it. Like if you start looking at the models that they're putting forth, what they want to do is come up with more centralized systems. They also want to eliminate intermediaries, but they want to have more direct control of that money, and they also want to have control of that money to make it programmable, and they want to have transactions that are reversible because it's very difficult to sanction a currency that does not have reversible transactions. It's very difficult to sanction a currency that is truly decentralized. Bitcoin does not actually promote upward economic mobility. If you're looking at hey, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin, it's going to go from 10,000 to 40,000. It's going to go from 40,000 to 400,000. It's going to go from 400,000 to a million. And like you're hearing people really talk numbers like this. I think the highest estimate I heard is like Bitcoin 1.5 million in the next few years. Now it's possible, but what's really going to happen there? It's going to be the early adopters that make the money. It's going to be the whales that make the money. This is not going to be something that promotes a lot of upward economic mobility, within El Salvador. And Bitcoin in and to itself, it creates some jobs, but it doesn't create any products. So that might not do a lot for El Salvador's general economy. It might help El Salvador in terms of their ability to build up some reserves and have something to call upon at a later time. But Bitcoin, it's like everything about it really encourages hoarding. Bitcoin, it doesn't it's not without another currency. Bitcoin's not even all that liquid. It doesn't move that fast. Like you wouldn't be able to replace the dollar and just go to Bitcoin and be able to execute transactions fast enough to keep the world moving. Bitcoin's transactional efficiency is highly dependent. It's dependent on other currencies. So yeah, keep an eye on Tether. Let's see how that turns out. I think that there are still a lot of pros for Bitcoin, and I think that after everything blows over, Bitcoin's still there. But it's going to have it's in a class almost to itself. It's more like art, really. Bitcoin, favors early adopters, which are mostly in wealthy countries, as we discussed before. El Salvador ain't on that list, and it just has things that just make people, the individuals, prone to what hackers do best, and what especially social hackers do best, which is getting access to data and using it in ways that they want. And then one of the biggest complaints that's out there about Bitcoin is the fact that it can be lost. Now, that's good for the folks who have not lost their Bitcoin. It is terrible for someone who does. Like imagine a family in El Salvador, and they've taken their hard-earned wages or money from their business. They've stored it in Bitcoin. They have it on like some sort of physical wallet because they want it to be secure. They want to know where it is. And then there's a landslide, and those things happen. There's a landslide, takes the house out, and the physical wallet's lost. Well, the Bitcoin's gone. You don't get it back. And then you can have soft wallets, but then now you're actually re-centralizing the process, and there's some risk with that. So how do you handle those things? I don't think it's all figured out. It's a very it's been around for a while, but we're talking. This is something for the 21st century, and shoot, we're not even a quarter way through there. So. The biggest thing that I'd take away from is that with Bitcoin competing with the banking system, there's an uphill battle there because I don't know how El Salvador gets a bailout and maintains Bitcoin as a legal tender. I can just see too many situations where they have to sell it off. So, is Bitcoin a threat to the governments and banks? Well, now let's take a look. So governments, they like to have a lot of control, and the way that they maintain that control is by getting the population to utilize currency. They can increase the amount of currency in the market. They can decrease the amount of currency that's in the market, and they can stimulate the demand with their economy. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's probably the biggest deal. Governments, they have their militaries, and their militaries tend to use more conventional currencies to get things that they need and to move around. And governments with powerful militaries, like let's take the United States for example, let's take Russia for example, let's take China for example. You know, like or you can even go like let's talk about the Middle Eastern countries. There's significant military forces there. Like India has a huge military. Like do they really want to have a currency that they cannot control? During wartime. Like do they really want to have a major currency that they cannot control? I guess you could say they don't control gold as well. But when going gets tough, folks can say, hey, look, we're gonna print some more money, but we're back with gold. You say, hey, look, we're going to print some money, but we're back with Bitcoin. All you need is an outside party to really manipulate that market, and people will question whether or not it has value. Gold's got a long history, and that really works in its favor. So there's some more problems, like Bitcoin reserve systems. Like they would place a limit on government spending. Now, it's really hard to grow an economy when your spending is limited. Really hard. The United States hasn't done it. China didn't do it. If you go out to I guess like Singapore would be an example of a country that really doesn't have any debt. But there's been a massive amount of money that's gone into Singapore. But most countries in the world, like the way they grow is through debt, and they pay that debt by utilizing and managing inflation. Countries that don't have their own sovereign currency, actually they tend to be poorer for that reason. It's harder for them to build out the major infrastructure projects that they need to do things like have a robust internet system, have a robust tech sector, have a robust manufacturing sector. And what else El Salvador really needs is to have a robust energy sector. Like without the energy, it's hard to get any of the rest of the things done, and you start having trouble, feeding yourself and moving your equipment around. So, governments like they actually like that inflation, and with Bitcoin being actually a deflationary instrument, that actually compromises the ability of the government to take power, and it compromises the ability to silently tax the people. Bitcoin is very unstable. We're seeing it right now. Like you've watched the price go from what high like $60,000 and above, and you have folks right now they're saying, hey, Bitcoin, hey, it could drop down there. It could bottom out at like $14,000 or $15,000. That's quite a haircut to take. So like when it's in the 30s and the 40s, people are still feeling all right. But if it loses support, it can drop and recover. But that's a highly volatile instrument to be banking on. In Bitcoin, my personal feeling, and folks that I've talked to have pointed out that Bitcoin favors producer economies. It weakens the purchasing power of importing consumer economies. So, like the United States switching to Bitcoin would probably actually be bad for us. Because of so much of what our legacy traditional banking system is like. If you eliminated the banking system, you jubileed the whole world, and everybody started at zero, and you throw some Bitcoin out there, I don't know, it might. It could work in the United States, but more than likely, in about 50 years, most of that Bitcoin's in the hands of maybe 10% of the population. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Now, if you are an importing consumer economy, like you can buy things in Bitcoin, but but you're shipping that Bitcoin out to the producer, and the producer is then incentivized to hoard that Bitcoin. They're not incentivized to buy, fiat bonds, and they're not really even incentivized to, like, if you're running a trade surplus, they're not incentivized even to convert to another currency. So you could lose a lot of liquidity in the system. So, like, is Bitcoin a threat to governments or banks? I'd say yes. I'm hard pressed to find many other governments that think that Bitcoin could become a currency, and they even run aside their own currency without upsetting the apple cart. Because when there's a run to an asset other than the dollar, or when lending is taking place outside of the dollar in the United States, everything falls apart because in our system, debt's money. Bitcoin's an asset. In our system, liabilities are money. So that's a threat. Oh, so, and I guess I kind of harp on this, but really, cryptocurrencies, like, this is a quote that I found out there. Cryptocurrencies could also eventually present challenges for central banks were they to affect control over the money supply and therefore the conduct of monetary policy. Then I'll repeat that. Cryptocurrencies could eventually present challenges for central banks were they to affect control over the money supply and therefore conduct of monetary policy. It's not me saying it. I've got the information posted at the bottom of the slide there, so you can go and check out the article yourself. But a good bit of thought by people with minds better than mine has definitely gone to this. Like, I would say that international banking institutions absolutely hate Bitcoin. Like, the IMF, they have urged, and urged is very a polite and diplomatic way of saying threatened. The IMF has urged El Salvador to reverse its decision to make Bitcoin legal tender, and this happened at the beginning of the whole thing. I haven't seen anything anywhere from anyone reputable that indicates that the IMF is trying to change that position. The latest that I've seen in terms of what they'd like to see for, payment settlement systems and what they'd like to see for, the currency markets going forward is actually to centralize things with the IMF more and utilize the IMF to bail out, most of the G7 at this point. And so, like, just thinking about these things, why would El Salvador turn to Bitcoin as legal tender? Like, and there are legitimate reasons there. We did the pros. I'm just gonna recap a few of them. But like El Salvador, they don't have a sovereign reserve currency, and that's really a big part of it. There aren't a lot of benefits. El Salvador they just don't have a lot to lose. It definitely provides great headlines for the administration. It makes them appear more forward-looking. They have a very youthful president. They're like El Presidente, like the El Presidente, like, he's doing a good job down there getting people to root for him. But they're feeling some stress there. So, like, if Bitcoin goes to the moon, El Salvador's their big winner as an early adopter. There are some limits to what they can do after that because it's going to take some more planning. But El Salvador is they I guess they might be able to get some tech companies coming there because there's a bit of FOMO on where do we invest? Like, should we invest? Should we build out? But it's hard until you have a solid internet backbone in your country, and you need to have a technologically savvy workforce. Unless you want to import them, cost of living is really low down there, and it could be better for many people to move to El Salvador than it is to move to the Middle East. You don't have all the amenities, but you have a different way of living. As long as you can connect to work, like, there is some potential there. Maybe it becomes like a Cayman Islands of coin or something like that. But the real reason that El Salvador switched to Bitcoin is because the president said, "Why the heck not?" And apparently nobody else had a good answer to stop him. And so that's I guess just about that's about the simplest way I can say it. Um, so what could go wrong? You got a situation here where you have a cryptocurrency that's being used, like, so actual dollars and other currency and commercial instruments have been used and this money's been taken from the coffers of the people of El Salvador to purchase, Bitcoin out of the open market. El Salvador's they've paid an upfront cost for this, and with the Bitcoin price falling, folks have come knocking on their door saying, okay, you need to continue making your bond payments, but El Salvador can't, like, they don't actually have what they had before, in terms of the coin value. Like they were riding high for a while, and they're starting to come back to earth. There's a systemic risk in El Salvador, like, because, like, when you're not getting the lending that you need from the central banks as things are right now, it's very difficult to navigate things like the financial crisis. If Jamie Dimon's saying that there's a hurricane that's off like out there that's coming, whatever happens in the U.S. is going to hit El Salvador harder. The main thing that we export is currency. The other things that we export, are problematic investment instruments, because Bitcoin is anonymous and countryless and all that good stuff. Like, folks can't blame us for this one, but El Salvador's probably going to need some help. I'm actually very concerned for the people of El Salvador, and like in this coming wave now. So it's like they're in a better place than some other countries that are more arid. El Salvador has one of the most important things, which is water. El Salvador does have agriculture that's strong, but they're gonna run short on money. Now, could El Salvador, find that real assets and other properties, like, within the country, inflate with Bitcoin in the mix? That is possible if money starts to move there. Like, we've seen money move to Puerto Rico, which is, to me, kind of odd. But you see money move to Puerto Rico, like, because for either, like, tax benefits, and, like, like, crypto millionaires, they want to move off somewhere. Like, I can respect it, but, like, it could cause inflation, and that might actually hurt the people, like, that already live in El Salvador. It could widen the income disparities, and that is often bad for society. Bitcoin, like, could collapse or effectively be banned by foreign governments. Now, El Salvador would be sitting on an asset that they can't actually exchange with their major partners. Like, so they would have to go back to the open crypto markets to make that exchange. But at that point, if it were banned by foreign governments, or there was some sort of UN resolution, or like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on right now. It could make El Salvador a pariah state, and given that they aren't a really strong militarily, like, they have very accessible borders, and that there's El Salvador has actually a history of some instability within. You could see the government get changed out in there fairly quickly, were something like that to happen. They A complete loss of faith in the government. But the biggest risk that El Salvador has is some form of sanctioning by the internet establishment. Like, and it doesn't seem unlikely. In fact, it seems like if they should continue down this path and try to go farther with it, it seems very likely indeed. So, as time has progressed, I'm posting a piece here. This is from, it's from 2022, and, like, so you're looking at here. Fitch Ratings is downgrading, El Salvador's deeper into junk bond status, and part of what they're citing there is the risk from Bitcoin. Like, this is a huge problem for El Salvador in the short run, because you already know El Salvador is completely dependent on foreign currencies to maintain its reserves. El Salvador is a country that does not own a central bank printing machine. They can't go, make it rain, or burr burr burr. They have no ability to do that. El Salvador, they're going to edge closer and closer to complete default, and the debts is unlikely to be just the debt's unlikely to be payable through their Bitcoin reserves. in the short run. So, there's this is going to be really an interesting story to watch play out. Like, I just want to thank everybody for watching this, video. Like, if you have time, give it a like, give it a subscribe. If there was something useful in it, please share it with somebody else. But I think people should still be looking at that. And then there's a quote that I found that I think is quite relevant to a lot of the conversation that has to do with decentralized currencies. With decentralized currencies, like you're changing what the control is. And Kissinger had this famous quote. He said, "If you control the food, you control a nation. If you control the energy, you control a region. If you control the money, you control the world." Countries want to have control of their currency, and we're actually in a scary time because what Kissinger's talking about there right now, we're getting ready to live through a very eventful period in terms of food, in terms of energy, and in terms of money. And we should all be spending some time doing some research and building our ark, as long as it's not with Kathy Wood. All right. It's great to hear you guys, or great to see you guys. I'm glad that you took a moment to watch my video. Give it a like, give it a subscribe. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.